Hey, thanks for coming to day 2 of the Niantic Coffee House. We have a lot of great programming for you today. There's not a lot of people here at the moment, but yesterday we got pretty packed, so I'm sure that'll happen. So starting off our day here, we have Mike Romero, who's our engineering director on Ingress. He's going to give us a talk about Ingress. So
Hi.
Take it away.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we're ready. We're ready to talk about Ingress now? Okay, so I'm Mike Romero. I'm the engineering director on Ingress, and I've worked at Niantic for a long time now. So since the spin out from Google, and so I've seen a lot there, including the growth of Lightship. And so today I'm going to be talking about how Niantic intersects with Lightship. And I've worked on Ingress for a long time also. I worked on it 3 distinct times. The most recent I started as engineering manager in 2021. And the first time I started working on Ingress was when we were still inside of Google, and we were this little like skunkworks project there. Yeah, so I've been a developer for a long time. Now I'm Ingress, and but I'm here today because I'm also a Lightship developer. Like hopefully like you all are, and if not, soon you will be. And so I'm going to be showing what sort of how Ingress connects with Lightship. But first, I want to talk about what is Ingress, right? Just to give you some context. It's, you know, we've been here for 10 years, but it's a niche game. You know, we're small but mighty. We're Niantic's original location-based game. Oh, I should probably keep my head in one place. All right. We're Niantic's original location-based game, and we started when it was a startup within Google. Niantic was a startup within Google, and it's 10 years old now. And a big part of Ingress is these live events. And let me define that. So a live event is when players gather in a city and they play Ingress for about 4 hours, and then they have a big party afterwards. We also do those global live ops where it's virtual in the whole world, but a special thing about Ingress is we bring people together in the real world. And location-based, I want to say that the points that people play on, where they compete, it matters. Like the location of this point of interest matters. The relationships of them to each other matters. And Ingress is really a battle of these points of interest. And we'll see later how that really connects with Niantic VPS. Okay, so Ingress is about territory control in the real world, and there's only 2 teams. And the player can control a location only if they're physically there. They have to be actually there. And to destroy another player's control, they also have to go back to that location. So it's about these specific points of interest. And a little known fact about Ingress is that when Pokemon Go launched, all the Pokestops and all the gyms were Ingress portals that had been submitted by Ingress players, and that's where it all came from. We're the small but mighty heart inside Niantic. Yeah, and then now we are built on using Lightship, just like Pokemon Go, and like hopefully your work. So with all that global coordination, people working, you know, across the world and coordinating, making these big fields on Ingress, it's really played on the streets, like one location at a time. Okay, we're at a game developer conference, so let me just say the game loop, the main game loop for Ingress, okay? So you visit an Ingress portal, you destroy the other team's resonators, you put your resonators on there, and then you link the portal to another portal, and you form a triangle. This triangle is a control field, and you score points for all the captured mind units under it. That's clear, right? So, okay, let's move on to Lightship. So the other important thing, actually before we get to Lightship, the other important thing is about glyph hacking. So another really important part of Ingress is that we have the shaper language of glyphs. So these are coming through the portals from some other dimension. We don't know where they're coming from, but it seems like it's intelligent on the other side. It's kind of like conflicting, maybe confusing, but it's an important part. And the last one on that slide says, create new portal potential. And that is what we're doing with VPS, and I'm going to be getting to that. So what Ingress is doing right now with Lightship are 3 things. So we have Lightship maps in there, which are going to be available to you soon. We have the AR scanning framework. We have an earlier iteration of it. The new one that's coming out, when it's publicly released, we'll move to that. And we're now building a VPS feature, which is, it's not live yet, but it's coming, and we're working on it, and I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of it today. So we're going to go through each of these one at a time, and yeah, let's just do it. So let's see. So Lightship maps is first, and here Here, I'm just going to arrange my notes a little bit so I can see the screen. OK. So Lightship maps are coming soon to Lightship, and what they do is they flexibly serve map tiles of varying zoom levels. And so Ingress ones are really dark and mysterious, but you can do them however you want. You could make them bright and light, and I'll show some other examples in a couple of slides of what other games have done with this. And these are the same maps that Ingress and Pokemon Go have been using, all the time. They've had many iterations. They've gotten a lot better, more performant. But now it's being released to all of you, that you're going to be able to use these same maps. Yeah, so these are the straight maps up there. The bright points are Ingress game objects, but the layer below is the map. And these maps are really detailed, and they cover the whole world. And that's because they're built on OpenStreetMaps. And so it's nothing extra OpenStreetMaps, and it doesn't change their data at all. It just packages it up and makes it easy for you to download and render it, which is super useful. And then it's also really easy to change what it looks like and to be able to make it be, to fit your game also. And it's updated periodically. And every time they update it, it's a new epoch. And so here's some of the other games that have used these very same Lightship maps, but rendering completely differently than Ingress. These are not dark and mysterious games here. It's NBA All World, it's Pikmin Bloom, and it's Pokemon Go. Yeah. Yeah, and it comes with sample renderers, and so you get to configure it however you want to be able to make your roads right. But you can also just rewrite those builders too, and just you're like, oh, I want to optimize it my special way. You can do that too. So it's really powerful, and we're really happy with it. And there's a lot of different. In Ingress, the only thing we really do is roads and water. So we experimented with parks, and Pokemon Go shows parks in there, and it's really important to their gameplay. For Ingress, parks are too happy. We want it to be more dark and mysterious. And then, so we didn't even do water at first. And so, because we were dark and mysterious. But then we added it. Our art director was like, we have to add water. And he was right, because if you live next to the lake and you look at a map and it doesn't have the lake, it just, it breaks the immersion. You're not connected to your own place anymore. So, yeah, so that's the, I almost called them map tiles. That was the original name we had. They're Lightship maps, very powerful. And they're coming, I think, yeah. Well, there's a talk later today, and they're going to say when they're coming. And then, so then the next step, so there's three things, right? So there's the Lightship maps, the AR scanning framework, and VPS. So this is the second one, the AR scanning framework. So AR scanning, so it's basically a way to send a bunch of images up to our server so we can build the Lightship map of the world. I mean, you can also scan just for meshing locally, but the real reason we're using the AR scanning framework is to help build the VPS map of the world. But you can't just tell your players, hey, go do this work for me, right? It has to also be fun. It has to be connected to the game. But the important part for it is that we're building towards the VPS map of the world. So you can scan with Ingress right now, and you can scan with Pokemon Go. So both of those, you can scan a point of interest, and then it sends that series of images up to our servers who create the VPS, which I'll get to in the third part. You can also use Scaniverse to do your scanning, and the Wayfarer app, which I guess is not publicly available yet. But if you talk to one of the Lightship folks, maybe they can set you up. And that also lets you do private scans for your VPS development. So anyone here who's going to start working on a VPS feature in Lightship, you are going to find yourself using Wayfarer to do a private scan so you can develop in your office. So you don't have to go out to the park every single time you wanna try it on a phone. Yeah. And then, so Ingress scanning, we have a few different ways. So we started with that, the point cloud. Actually, I'm not even sure which one was first, but we've done these two different ways of scanning. And so for us, the key was that you want to make sure that the player sees that they're making progress. So we had a problem where people were sort of too far away when they were scanning, from their car in the street. And so the meshing really made it so you knew you had to get closer, that it would just mesh on the inside of your car. So that was a really important thing, because the goal is to build a VPS map of the world. And to make sure it wasn't just about work, we also have rewards. So Ingress players love their badges, so there is a badge tick on it, but it's also like physical things in front of you that you get. So it looks cool to scan, you're building this map, but you also, and it's community rewards. So once a point of interest has at least 7 scans, then we'll put this a game object on it that gives a battle and rewards. It's really fun. And then when there's 13, we just immediately put a game object called a fracker that gives double rewards for everybody. And so before our live events, when people are farming and getting gear, they want to put this fracker on, and you could buy a fracker, or you can do a bunch of scans. And so that's pretty helpful too. And then once it's activated as a VPS portal, that unlocks gameplay. Our players don't know it yet, but that's coming soon. Which brings us to why are we scanning waypoints? And now, I've probably said it enough that we're trying to build the VPS map of the world. And so scanning makes VPS locations possible. So these players have been scanning. Ingress players have been scanning for 3 years now, and Pokemon Go players have been scanning a little less time than that, but there's a lot more of them. And we scan so that we can have this VPS feature, and so that you all, Lightship developers, can use VPS. But why? Why do we want VPS, right? So VPS is pretty powerful. It's a magic that it connects the local location to planet location. Like, once you localize a phone against a VPS-enabled portal, you know where that phone is, its position and orientation to centimeter scale, like relative to the whole planet. Like, that's really amazing. And it's a new tool that we have, and we're all just starting to explore it. And Ingress is also starting to explore what can we do with it. And someone in this room is going to think of something really amazing, and there's a lot of really awesome possibilities. It's like whenever we have a new toy, like when the Wiimote came out, we're all like, ooh, what can we do? So this is way more powerful than the Wiimote, and so a lot of good things are going to happen. And so another big part, which Ingress is not doing yet, we're going to do the second thing, is that having a VPS map and localizing to the VPS map means you could persist objects in the world, forever. Like, other people come and they can see the same object in the same place, and even as time goes by. And so that's also really a lot of interesting gameplay, that you can precisely place an object in your game board, which is the world, and then it'll still be there until you move it or destroy it or remove it. So that's pretty exciting. And we're bringing it to Ingress. So we talk about closing the loop, that we ask these players to scan to build a VPS map of the portal. And Ingress players are awesome, and they did it, but they're like, and why are we doing this again? So we're doing it to make the VPS map of the world. And so we want to now give them that fun experience. We want to give them the fun thing. And so our first step is Overclock, that I'm going to get to on the next slide. And that glyph there is unbounded. So I don't know, I just thought that was appropriate for here. We really want to be unbounded in our uses. So the Overclock feature is, it's a new method of hacking resources for Ingress portals, and it builds on Ingress glyphing that I talked about before. And this is, right, that's the old glyphing on the right, and then there's going to be a new way, which I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, because I want to save that surprise for the team when we launch it to our players. But basically, you're going to be in the real world, and it's going to have something to do with glyphing, but we're going to, using VPS, we can place things precisely, and it'll be the same for everyone who comes back to that same location. And so what we want to do, we just want to have something that's fun for our players, but we also want to really prove this VPS. So just like we did all the points of interest that became the Pokestops in Pokemon Go, we want to help all of you all by sort of proving out that this works. And there's some details as we go live in all the whole world worth of VPS portals. Some of the early experiences now are more bespoke experiences, where you're saying at this one VPS a location, I'm going to set up an environment and make things work. And that's wonderful, and that's really the accessible way to do it. But Ingress wants to push it. So we're like, well, what if we did it on every single portal on the whole planet? So you can't do anything specific for it. You have to make sure you can always adapt. And yeah. So maybe next year we're going to be talking about using generative AI to place objects in there. But that's getting ahead of myself. So yeah, we want to make sure everyone can use this efficiently. So in our AR feature, basically, we have to localize to the VPS portal. And that is the key part. That's like, does this work or not, right? Is there enough scans that when I point my phone at the amazing server they made can say, oh, this phone must be exactly here, because I know what it's seeing, I know what the images are there, and they have to know like the field of view of the camera and exactly what the phone is. But then from that, they do this calculation where they get centimeter precision, and then boom, you're locked in right there. So, but it has to localize, and we don't know how well it's going to work on the whole planet. So Ingress is going to try to find out for you. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about localization. So we just have all these questions, and so we want to launch something to find out. And like we're wondering, are all the VPS-enabled portals like possible for Ingress players to localize? I mean, they're all theoretically localizable, but someone who's a game player trying to play their game with arbitrary phone, and our sort of short instructions to them, are they going to be able to localize? Are they going to be able to make that connection? And so we want to really find that out, and if it doesn't work right enough, we're going to just dig in and fix it and figure out how to fix it. And if there's something we can't fix on Ingress, then we're going to go to the Lightship team and say, please help us, and they will. So it's going to get there. And then we know that there's places to stand that make it easier to localize, like basically places where more of the pictures came from. So do we need to do more to help players get to those locations? Or if it's off a little bit, is that enough? I mean, we don't know, and we're going to find out. And then we also don't know how real-world conditions will affect it that much. I mean, we've been telling everyone that we need to scan at different times of the day, different times of the year, different conditions. So, but we don't have hard data, like, oh, after a rain, it never works, or something like that. So we're going to learn. And so sort of there's some things that we've been telling ourselves as we do this, because it's, we always have to think of our players first, right? I'm saying we want to build a VPS map of the world, we want to help Lightship developers, and that's all true, but the number one thing has to be our players, or else, what's the point? And so everything you do out in the real world, when you're out on the streets, just keep it quick. Keep it quick, keep it quick. Even the simplest thing is hard if you're on the street and traffic's going by and people are interacting, so just keep it quick. And then the other thing is keep it your game. If you put a bolted-on tech demo into your game, people are going to see it and oh, that's cool, and then never play it again. And really, retention is one of the most important metrics for us as game developers, and that means you're going to play it tomorrow. So we really want people to keep playing it. So it has to be my game. It can't be a tech demo. And then keep it fun. And so this is an important part that we're trying to ask all these questions, like, will this part work? Will that part work? But it has to be fun for our players whether it works or not. And it has to be a fun experience, right? We're not going to say, try to localize. Oh, you localized, failed. We're going to be like, try to amplify your connection to the portal. And they'll be like, oh, that's mediocre amplification or something like that. We're going to always frame it in our universe. And it's always, the player's doing the right thing, even if the system's not working completely. It's really... It only works if you always think about your player. And so for us, we want to make sure it's the most fun if it works correctly. Because really, we want to keep the player's interests aligned with ours. If we make it so that if it fails, you get all the rewards anyway, and it's, you're done, then everyone's going to fail on purpose. They're not going to try to localize. But then if it fails to localize and you get nothing, then people are going to be like, screw this, why am I bothering, wasting my time, and I don't get anything. So we want to make sure we keep the players' interests aligned with ours. And so that means we want them to try the feature multiple times, and they want it to be as successful as possible. They want to get sort of the experience that we made for them. So, and this is something that we do generally across Ingress, that we want to make sure our interests are always aligned with the players. That, yeah, I mean, that's a classic exploit, right? If their interests are not aligned with yours. Yeah, and I also think that you should consider a fun AR experience for when you're not at a VPS-enabled portal, so or point of interest. So what do you want to give the people? But for Ingress, actually, we thought about that, and we decided not to. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to ask them to scan that portal more, to scan it and promote it into being a VPS-enabled portal. Yeah. And as a Lightship developer, you'll be able to more quickly get points of interest promoted as VPS-enabled portals. Okay, and that's it. That's my whole talk. I surprised myself at the end there, but okay. Yeah.